Hope to the hopeless, blessed to flow this, descending from an ancient line of poets, starting with the Olmecs down through the Mexicas. A whole race of knowledge seekers, keepers of a universal wisdom. Physically gone, still we're living with them, unified by one vision. So corporate Christians can't really blind it with religion. It's like burning stones, they only get heated. Get it through your head, we can't be defeated. You cheated, lied, stole, murdered and raped, but one thing you can't take is our love and faith. You might get our bodies, yet our souls will escape, and the soul is a very hard thing to break. So go ahead, keep secrets in your societies. Eventually Creator will reveal these to me. A whole race of knowledge seekers, a whole race of knowledge seekers, a whole race of knowledge seekers, keepers of a universal wisdom.
I rise like the rays of the sun, like the gods did in Teotihuacan, traveling beyond the limitations of your expectations. You must have forgotten my people's creations, temples misinterpreted for pyramids, with exact placements in accordance with their galactical locations. The temple of the sun is the sun's interpretation, as is Quetzalcoatl, the morning star's manifestation. So the temple of the feathered serpent is Venus's representation. All of this and so much more, yet you continue to define us bloodthirsty savages. Reality is you don't know what harmony is. Rhythms, emotions, knowledge that could fill millions of oceans, bringing to an end your abstract notions. We're beyond the optical, so much more than the physical. Reality's universal, and within you and me is that divine energy. We are just vibrating at a different frequency, and that is the reason why you are able to see me.
A whole race of knowledge seekers, a whole race of knowledge seekers, a whole race of knowledge seekers, keepers of a universal wisdom.
My soul vibrates in harmonious rhythm because I represent the ancient men and women, expanding your mind, connecting you with time, not the one you keep track of, but the one from the heavens above, the sacred skies, the universe, the mother of our birth, the one that can take away the curse felt for hundreds of years. It seems to me, all we're fighting is fear, but what you don't understand is nature's stronger than man. Secret societies and the Ku Klux Klan. Maker of night, giver of life. Give me the strength to continue the fight, because it doesn't end with me. It rages on through eternity, through eternity, through eternity.
A whole race of knowledge seekers, a whole race of knowledge seekers, a whole race of knowledge seekers, keepers of a universal wisdom.
Yo, Los Aslan Natives Podcast, Los LA Natives Podcast. We have a couple early birds in the building, Zero.
Yo, what's up with my community? It's nice to be out here once again, sharing the message, developing a new team. And welcome back, Wally.
Hello.
Welcome back, Wally.
Good to be here.
Cool. We're glad you're here, too, because you give a different energy to the podcast that I think is needed, and it needs to be, unbiased and your true self, so.
If there's anyone out there that could point us to another indigenous podcast, let us know. I don't know of any of them, Zero.
Right. No.
I don't know. Like, we've been doing this shit for 4 years now.
What's the name of Jonathan's podcast?
He has a red shirt.
Red Shirt podcast. Yeah, people should follow Red Shirt because we're about to do an event. Yeah, we're about to do an event with him. We postponed it. He was going to come in April, but we postponed it to June, which is even better because it seems like it's going to be like a little tour. And I know I can at least do the San Diego show and the Los Angeles show that we're trying to prepare in June. So hopefully we can lock down the meetings that we need to have for those particular dates. And then move forward in our kind of, new ventures. It's a new year. Last year was, we just commemorated the last show with the start of a new Mexica New Year, which was March 12th. And so we're right in the, getting in the rotation of movement, and the springtime is here. So, that's where we're at,
And for anyone that's in the LA area, SoCal area, you do have a show coming up, right, Zero?
Absolutely. I'm going to play on Sunday at Sounds of Music. Now, this show is kind of cool because, one, it's shout out to La Clica. They're a biking, East LA biking community, and they're very dope. One of the homies is really, someone that's been in a part of my music career for a long time. He showed me some old videos that he sent me, and I really appreciate the show. So I'll be playing at Sounds of Music. Here's another part of that show, is that it's actually the place where Ruben Salazar passed away. The Sounds of Music used to be a bar, and Ruben Salazar, during the protest, went into that bar, and that's where they shot him. So there's a little plaque. So make sure whoever goes to the show, whoever's local in LA, it's going to be on Sunday during the daytime. Go to my Instagram to get more info. But I'll be playing, I don't have a set time just yet, but I know I'll be playing on Sunday in a place. Just look for the Ruben Salazar plaque. And that's where I'm going to really kind of share my poetry and my message with the community that I love. So
That sounds like fun.
yeah. So roll up, pull up. That's what they say now. Pull up.
Pull up.
Yeah,
Definitely.
pull up.
Be there.
Mondo, I sent you a post that I think is really important, that I think is important to talk about, because the type of moves that we're kind of facing in this time are very, very crucial. Like, I think this particular post, not that I'm a part of the military or that I support the military or that I do anything, but I'll break down at the end what my opinion is. And I want to get right into this podcast because we don't spend a lot of time together. We see each other once a week for 1 hour and a half. And we're trying to make an impact into your heart. And so I think that as we grow the podcast and we start to mold it, it's important to talk about things that resonate with, I think, us as a global indigenous community. And I feel like when you have first we'll hear this individual talk about it, but when you're erasing things that actually helped you be victorious, then we got to start judging the character of who's in charge. But I think it's the best thing to do is to listen to it first and then kind of go from there. If you can pull it up real quick, Amando.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. And guys, you guys have to understand, this is what, episode 123, guys.
Yeah.
A lot of our podcasts are timeless, right, Zero? Like, people could watch the Masa Scene interviews and feel like we just shot it last week. Yeah.
Well, because we like to be connected with our community, and our community has profound messages within it. We were just talking on the way over here to the podcast that, there's visual artists that need to be talked about. There's musical artists that need to be talked about, not only from Los Angeles. Obviously, we have our homegrown artists that have been, participating in this movement and in this message for over 20 years. But there's also the new school people like, Jonathan from, I forgot do you know his stage name?
I believe it's
Oh yeah, something. I forgot.
Original Voice.
Okay, there you go.
Original Voice.
Yeah, so, I mean, we got that young brother who's, I was listening to his podcast editorials. And then I just all of a sudden started hearing him rapping. I was like, I didn't even know it was him.
That's really good stuff.
Yeah, he's really good at it.
Really talented.
Yeah, and the lyrics are on point. I think that he's calling out the right people and just putting
corruption.
out. Yeah, the corruption.
Tribal corruption.
He's really into, calling the native councils out and putting truth to, talking truth to power. And we support him. So we're going to try to work on that show. But it's important to have a good relationship with our people from the reservations because they also have a story. And that story kind of reminds me of the Chicanos that went to World War I and World War II. Because let's face it, it wasn't just Native Americans and it wasn't just black people. It was a lot of our people too. So this story is relevant to us.
When it comes to history, this is important. Yesterday, I found out that the Navajo code talkers were erased from the Department of Defense website, and also within all the articles, and then also within history itself. And I can safely say that when the line of questioning was brought before the Pentagon press secretary, he did confirm that Secretary Pete Hegseth said that DEI is dead at the Defense Department, and stated that we are pleased by the rapid compliance across the department with the direct removing DEI content from all platforms. Some individuals need to be educated, because as was confirmed by the United States Supreme Court, Supreme Court of the United States did confirm that DEI is not applicable to tribal nations. And the reason being is that we are political entities. And to subject our history to this type of practice is not appropriate. It lacks intelligence. And then most importantly, I think that all the way around, honestly, I don't know where we would be if it was not for the Navajo code talkers, the Hopi code talkers, the Sioux code talkers, the Pima code talkers, the Gila River code talkers, the Apache code talkers. All of these tribes contributed greatly to winning the war, a code that was never broken at all. All of these indigenous warriors never told a soul. They had to make a promise to never tell, and they never did until in the mid-1980s when they were given permission to tell their story. My uncle, Mike Kia'ani, was a code talker in Iwo Jima. He was shot 3 times. He ended up in the hospital. As soon as he was mended, they stuck him right back out there. And he continued to fight until he was wounded. And then a great deal, he had 2 shrapnels on in his side, and there was extensive internal damages before they brought him home. And so as code talkers, my uncle, my relative, today they tell this story of what happened to him. His story did not come out until about 15 to 20 years ago. And so he was the radio person in Iwo Jima when he was captured. And they lined him up after torturing them for days. He would not tell the transmission of the codes. He would not translate it. So they all lined him up, and in front of everybody, they cut off his tongue. They cut off his tongue.
Yo, that is insane.
Yeah. This is the reason I think it's important to point out this story is because when you go to reservations, sometimes there's American flags, right? And then you're going there, with, sometimes maybe just a little bit more edgier attitude to it because you're going, oh, yeah, we want freedom. And some people don't want what we want, right? Or what we wanted when we were young, because it always evolves. It's never one state. You know what I mean? What you feel in your early 20s, late 20s, early 30s is not going to be the same thing that you feel in your 40s and into your 50s. We have to teach our children how to evolve. But when you give so much, remember, she said they couldn't tell their story until 15 years ago. That means that he could have told his story about like being wounded and his war story, or get interviewed by somebody or write a book about it. But he was forbidden to tell his story, right? 15 years ago. And now he's completely erased from the books. He's completely wiped out. Not that I care that this website has them, more along the lines that this is more of a critical thinking exercises for those that understand how to make a decision. Why would you ever invest your life in that way? Because some people are prideful about people who don't care about you. They don't care about you enough, so much. They don't care about you so much that they're willing to just erase and delete you.
And are they using the DEI excuse?
Absolutely, 100%. And you know who else do you know who Jackie Robinson is?
The baseball player, right?
Yes. He was one of the first black players to play in the baseball league, right? And
I hope
he was known, I think, because he accepted the draft and went and fought in the war. Yeah, pull that up. And they erased him from the website, from the military website. They erased him. This guy's an icon. This guy's an icon to American history.
True. And they also erased the Latino warrior soldiers too.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. Yeah. I'm not sure of anyone who I know.
hope these reports are inaccurate, that Jackie Robinson's profile has been removed from DOD websites. Please tell me that this is not true.
Sadly, it is, Joe. A page dedicated to Hall of Famer Jackie Robinson's military history has been removed from the Department of Defense's website. A previously existing article. Yeah, a previously existing article about Robinson's time in the Army during World War II now shows one of those page not found errors, and the new web page URL includes DEI before the story's headline, indicating it might have been taken down as part of the Trump administration's efforts to eliminate federal DEI programs. And Congressman, this is not the only one. We've been talking in recent days how the page dedicated to the Enola Gay, the flight that dropped the atomic bomb in Japan, was taken down, likely because the word gay appeared in it. Other American heroes, Medgar Evers, page dedicated to him, civil rights hero, taken down. Jackie Robinson is the epitome of American hero and a veteran, and yet erased from the Department of Defense's website.
Yeah, that's right. And the code talkers, too. Let's not forget about the Navajo code talkers who literally helped us win World War II by communicating and keeping our secrets in a way that the Japanese could not break our codes. I mean, incredible stories of heroism trying to be wiped away, because that's what this administration does. That's what Donald Trump does. If it doesn't fit his narrative, if it doesn't give him credit for it, then it doesn't matter, and it should be wiped from history, right? So part of our challenge here is not allowing that to happen, to keep history alive, to continue to tell the truth over and over and over again and call it out.
Look,
Crazy.
What it does, it's not just about erasing things from a website.
Right.
It's not just about
I
that.
think it's just an excuse
Well, give me your opinion. What do you think it's about?
for it's just a cover up for white supremacy, because obviously they're using DAI to get rid of the Black, Brown, and Asian histories or
Mexican histories.
achievements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and look, for me, if I think of it critically and if I look at it critically, like if you have these people on your website, and if for any reason you need to incarcerate them or put them in a way, like it almost dehumanizes them because they're not on our website. Like they can achieve great things. Yeah, I know Jackie Robinson did that, but it doesn't matter. He just like simply just erasing them, like if they don't have value. So when you make that public devaluing of Black, Asian, Mexican, whatever, then you elevate your. This isn't an overnight plan. No. This is a 20, 50-year plan, but it starts today. And that's why we're seeing all this erasure of all this history and, so that's my opinion.
And I think that we, as the brown community, we have been erased for a long time now. So we haven't been part of the history here of the United States for a very long time already. Like it's been a black and white binary.
Right.
So a lot of our history, Chicano history, Mexican history, it's been completely erased. Like
Right.
nobody really knows about it here.
Right, like Joaquin Murrieta. Like, do you
We're
know?
kind of used to it already.
Right. Do you know who Joaquin Murrieta is,
Yes.
Armando?
Absolutely not.
You see, he's a great hero. He's like a bandito.
He's a legend.
Yeah. He's like a Robin Hood. You know, he used to go rob big ranchers and
Inspired Batman and Zorro. They came from his legend.
yeah. You see, Hollywood
We're
exploited.
born, yeah.
Hollywood exploited our heroes. Right. These individuals.
Right.
This is who Joaquin Murrieta was. Like, he was just like, it's very interesting to kind of study our heroes, because Pancho Villa and Zapata and Joaquin Murrieta and all these other people, they were people who stood up to bullies. And they didn't stand up to bullies just by like protesting with signs. They actually went up to them and slapped them in the face and steal their horses and took their money and said, you know what, you're not going to steal from our people. And guess what? I took all your money and I gave it away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's all. They were really badasses, you know, and they were just not afraid. You know, they're like the
Fearless.
yeah.
Yes.
So these
Yes,
particular, you know, Pancho Villa, Zapata, Joaquin Murrieta, Geronimo, City,
Malverde too.
Malverde. I mean, obviously, there's always mixed messages with these things, because remember, back then we just had to stand up for ourselves, right? And they're not going to write our stories, because we are the majority on Turtle Island, especially in this region. Yeah. In this region, we can go all the way up to possibly Oregon and branch off into a little bit of Michigan. You know, there's a lot of population of, you know, they don't just say our population is going to be the next to explode for nothing. It's us that have indigenous blood. But Rocco from Maldita Vecindad, he's a big rock star in Mexico, said it the best. We are pre-Columbian native.
Colombian.
We're pre-Columbus natives. That's who we are. That's what we are.
Yeah.
You know, prehispanos. Somos nativos prehispanos. That's the way he said it, right? Mm-hmm. We're pre-Hispanic natives.
Was he the first one who said that?
Yeah. Well, actually, they come and they gather for conferences, and a lot of like historians come together and they share ideas, you know, and they call it the Council of Visions, right? So all the scientists and progressive people gather in Mexico for like 7 days, and they do ceremony and they talk about medicines and they bring out new ideas to combat, you know, living in a capitalistic environment. So like, you know, saving water through rain, and they're just progressive in that way. But I think at one of the conferences, they came out and they said that they're going to declare that they are pre-Hispanic natives, because we didn't have a choice. We should not be penalized in terms of blood quantum or in terms of validation, in terms of our indigenous blood. You should just judge us by the way we talk and treat you, and how we treat the earth, and how we treat our community. Right?
We should use that term more, pre-Hispanic.
Yeah, pre-Hispanic natives. That's who we are. We are pre-Hispanic. I'll share the video with you so you could see what he said, because I was backstage with him, and I go, because he's been.
Oh, he's always been conscious.
Yeah.
I remember his songs from the older times.
Yeah, no.
And he would, in his concert, he would stop and talk about how we're indigenous, and
Right.
he would go on making speeches.
Exactly.
Since back then.
Yeah, and so he was been a part of very strong movements in Mexico, and that is one of the new messages, is that we are pre-Hispanic natives, because we didn't have a choice about the blood mixtures that we are forced to live with.
True. I mean, people who actually study their history don't buy that myth, that Spanish myth, that we were just mixing cultures and marrying each other, because the reality is documented. Even by themselves, they've documented what they did, which was take the women by force, take the children by force, and that is how Mexicans were born.
And that's why we have large amounts of molestation and large amounts of
Exactly.
rape and large amounts of things of that nature in our community. Look, I'm going to just say it. Why?
Just say it.
There's no need to hide. I'm not afraid of it. That's part of the colonization road that we had to do. Now, that just adds to our spiritual strength. Because if you could survive those type of traumas and still find love and still find being rooted and still find a connection with Mother Earth and the stars and all of the amazing wisdoms that our ancestors brought for us.
Right. And if you look in
those are powerful things to do.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And if you look at the statistics about like the abuse of women and those statistics, like serial killers and all that, it's not brown people that is like ranking. So yeah, you're right. We're pretty strong in that, like fighting all of that, combating everything that we've been through and that we have in our blood and everything.
Even though they're trying to vilify us in the community, and right now there's a major campaign to vilify Mexicans. Yeah. I mean, to the point where people are attacking innocent people at stores, spitting on them, punching them with guns. I mean, we got to really prepare ourselves for a shift. But I don't want...
Well, remember the most popular, quote that they got is "Go back to Mexico."
Oh yeah,
right. And then we are in Mexico.
Go back to Mexico.
This is Mexico, bro. This has always been.
Go back to Mexico.
Right. Fake borders and military people on borders and guns and uniforms don't. I know what people are gonna say. Like they're gonna say, well, that's the laws and. This is the way we got. You're living in a non-reality.
You're living in the past.
Right. Look, I know that I'm a prisoner. It's what do I do while I'm in the prison? Am I going to sit there in my cell and complain about how the prison isn't cool, or am I going to dig a secret hole that they don't know that I have, that I get out every day? They think I'm in prison, but I'm not in prison. Because I connect to different things. I connect to the air, the water, the fire, and earth. Those are the elements that my ancestors, the principal elements that my ancestors told me to have a relationship with. Once you have that relationship with all those four things in a very deep, soul-connecting way, then the challenges become less. Then the prison walls become smaller. And eventually, you walk right through them because the wisdom of our ancestors is that profound. I don't see their grandfathers and grandmothers dedicating themselves to wisdom. They're dedicating themselves to material ownership. And that is on its way out.
For sure, yeah. And it's really up to us who have a couple of generations here in the U.S. already to kind of help the ones who are undocumented, because we're here already. We have a little bit more. I want to say not privilege, but we have a little.
No, but it's a privilege.
A little privilege that our ancestors, gave their lives for to bring us here.
Yes.
And then with that, we're able to, decolonize, if you will, and
we're able
make those connections like with the natives here and build those connections we need to move forward.
Right. It's
our community.
Our parents coming over because my grandfather was American because he was born on the Texas side before they put the border, and so my dad is Mexican and he had to cross over during illegally, looking for a better life. So that's. Well, back then they just wanted a better life. They just weren't making money in Mexico. Mexico didn't. There was so much corruption in Mexico that they had to. It's almost like they needed to.
Well, they're asylum seekers.
Yeah, exactly. But there was no asylum for them.
Exactly.
Right. It was considered like a low life thing. Oh, you're a wetback. You're a low life. You're gonna go work for $2 an hour, and this is the hierarchy that they're trying to promote in this time. Right, because they're vilifying Mexican people. They've been criminalizing African people. Everybody's getting it except for whites. This is what the whole DEI thing, in my opinion, is that they need to lessen. You can't target and oppress others if they're sitting in high positions, even if they're token. You know what I mean? Not when you're going after the same visions that you know, the guy with the mustache had in Germany. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like to say certain words because I don't want to be affected in our YouTube.
Sure, I
but
understand.
you have to think critical right here when you're on LA Natives. You know, we're trying to elevate our spirits through information, right, and understanding that this is a global move. The authoritarian governments, it's not just here in the U.S. Trump is trying to get into that space, and everybody who are pundits on the TV are just trying to laugh about it and going, oh, look how outrageous it is, and this and this and that. But they're gutting the government in light speed through executive orders. And it's so overwhelming that it's shifting, like, be prepared for only white people to be in charge. Legally. This is the move that they're trying to make now.
I mean, he already, with the DEI executive order, it was talked about recently that now with that, there can be segregation again.
See?
Legally.
Yeah.
Because they're no longer bound to it anymore because the DI was like a loophole.
Oh, like the restaurants could say, we don't serve Mexicans.
Exactly.
We
The
don't
countries
serve.
don't have to abide no more by it.
Yeah.
So segregation is like in the near
Well,
future again.
how long was DEI around though?
Probably since the civil rights. I'm thinking that, like, it started to progress from the civil rights on, right? Because that's when you started getting, you know, inclusionary things, and it got
Not sure
to.
what year it was, but
I don't know the name, but I know it started from because remember, we're talking about a time where you could say, "Hey, no blacks here, no Mexicans here." You wouldn't get sued. No one would protest because you would just be like, "Oh, that's where they don't serve the colored people." But then the civil rights movement came in. Martin Luther King came in, started doing the protests in these restaurants, and now it's illegal to do it. So that's the civil rights movement, and brought in these laws that they're taking away so they can mistreat you.
Well, I remember the civil rights movement was led by the brown community with the desegregation of the first public school in California.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah,
It was Mendes versus, I believe, Westminster or something.
Wow.
Well, it was a Mendes family, Mexican family.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Slash, I think Puerto Rican.
Cool. I didn't know that.
One parent Mexican, one also like
You know,
Puerto Rican.
during the civil rights movement, it was multiple communities, you know, starting to speak
eventually,
up
but
for themselves. Yeah.
The thing is, remember how before this I said how like our history as a brown community was erased.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened there. Like,
Right.
the start of it was
Like, this is another
in the
filtration
early
of it.
1900s by the brown community. There was Carmen. I think she's the one that laid her body on the railroad tracks.
Wow.
This was the early 1900s.
Wow.
before
And
the-
civil rights movement.
Yes, there
Wow.
was a lot of activity.
Like the Rosa Parks of our community.
She was like the Rose of her, yeah.
Wow.
So this is why it's important to have
What's her name
DEI
again?
and all this.
What's her name again?
There was Carmelita Torres, and there was the other lady who they put a freeway in her property,
Oh, wow.
and she also took arms and boycotted
Holy
in her
smokes.
land.
Nice. Nice.
There's a lot of activities before that led up to the Black-led civil rights movement that aren't talked about. That aren't given any
Well, yeah,
attention.
because you know, during that time would be around the time where they did Palo Verde, Bishop, and what was the last one? I always freaking forget the last
Paloma?
Paloma.
Yeah, you're right.
There you go.
That was
So
around-
during that time, there was segregation because they were only allowed to be in that neighborhood. Anytime they were outside of that neighborhood, they were messed with by the police. And
I'm sure, yeah.
so during that civil rights kickoff, right, and then boom, the civil rights movement pops off.
I remember before all of that.
Ruben Salazar starts to write articles on the LA Times. And
Was this before or after the Zoot Suiters?
this is around the time of the Zoot Suiters. The whole Bishop and Paloma and Palo Verde.
What I was talking to,
they were getting fucked with a lot too by the cops.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
what I was referring to was before the Zoot Suiters, though. Like way before. And
Right,
then
right,
also
right.
remember, before any of this was what inspired the whole freedom of slavery in the United States, which had happened in Mexico first. That Mexicans freed the black slaves that were running away to Mexico.
Well, from what I understand is that, okay, during the slave trade, the whole globe started outlawing it, right? Other countries, and the U.S. was one of the last countries to not, let go of slavery, right? Because they started making breeding camps, right? I don't know if people don't really know about this is another part that they erased from the history books, but when slavery started to become illegal in other places, they started breeding their own slaves instead of having to go get them from other places and bring them to the
Save
place.
some money, yeah.
Right. They just started making breeding. So it wasn't just, oh, I'm going to go steal a person and sell them. I'm going to steal them. Oh, that's a woman. Oh, that's a man. Okay, we're going to start making babies and taking those babies and selling them.
Definitely.
That's a very small piece of history that I read or I seen in a documentary. I'm not saying that those are the exact facts on what happened to African people. That's just a little piece of what I've studied. And so when you do that to a people, and I'm sure they tried to do that to us. I'm sure that we had a little bit of that going on, especially with the Spaniards, because the Spaniards were very like that, breeding. Because our women, let's face it, people who are of indigenous, Mexica, pre-Hispanic natives,
Right.
our women have been, sexualized the most.
Yeah. There is stories about that. Like, they would, there were not real, like, families when the Spaniards would obviously abduct underage, indigenous people, just say, so it doesn't get canceled or anything.
Right.
And marry them. And then when they were like husband and wife, they weren't treated like a wife.
Good point.
And the kids weren't treated like children
Right.
of the father. Like, it was more like they were like
Slaves.
Yeah. And so yeah, you're right.
Good point. That's a good way. We got
stories like that.
We got to start telling those stories because we can't romanticize that we were
Exactly.
like we have our indigenous strong blood. Yes, we have a lot of wisdom inside of us. We have a lot of ganas, a lot of will due to our history, but we also have to face the traumas that we had to go through, and those were it. And this is why we come to this point in time in history where people feel like, well, we can erase those guys. Those guys don't matter, and those guys don't matter, and those guys don't matter, and we're the only ones that matter. But you're not in the 1940s no more, bro. You're not in the 20s no more. You're not. People have cell phones. People have their own history. People don't care if you take them off your website because we'll build our own website.
Our own libraries.
Everything. It needs to have its own energy. We can't depend on governments to go, oh, they're taking me off the website. How sucky it is. I mean,
and this was like what 1850. It wasn't that long ago where, do you guys know where the federal courthouse is right here in LA and Olvera Street? That was the slave market.
See,
Olvera Street was, I think, essentially only built for it to be a slave market. They were selling Native Americans.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
1850. That was not too long ago.
That's the first, and you can tell because if you go there, you'll see like the balcony where it's like a little bit higher off the ground so that they can like display and turn around. Like, I don't know. That's what I'm picturing.
You know what? I picture the same shit, Zero.
Yeah.
Less than 200 years ago. It's not that long ago.
Right. If we think, cyclically.
Also, at that same location, they were doing the mass deportations. The Mexican repatriation, when they would snatch up Mexicans.
That was like
drop them off in Mexico. That's what they were. One of the hot spots where they were scoop them up from.
Right, because the train is there.
Because they were hanging out there at that plaza all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very important. It's the first street in Los Angeles. Olvera Street's the first street in Los Angeles. So it has a historic meaning to Angelinos, people who were born here in Tongva land, Chumash land.
And you know that other second street where they have the Japanese memorial of how they were taken to the internment camps, right? But on the same corner, but where the bridge is where the train was to deport the Mexicans to Mexico.
Right.
So it's like a lot of stuff happened in there, but then they took away that station and they just put the freeway or the bridge. Yeah. So.
Wow. Oh, the overpass that goes on.
Yeah.
Goes up Spring Street.
But notice how there's no plaque there.
Yeah.
There's nothing there.
Right. I mean, even like
there's pictures of it. Though.
Someone as great as Ruben Salazar literally has a like 4x4 little plaque, like 4 inches by 4 inch. I mean, this thing is like tiny, maybe 12, maybe 12 inches, but still, like that brother really, he organized one of the biggest Vietnam protests. Yeah, he organized one of the biggest Vietnam protests, and this was during around the time where like the Raza Unida party was coming into line up with Corky Gonzalez, Reyes Tijerina, and we Chicanos had a really strong movement. I really recommend that people try and find a documentary called Chicano, and it was done by PBS, and it has great history about how strong our leaders were, because Reyes Tijerina was no joke. If we talked about Leonard Peltier and the A movement going to build government buildings with arms and challenging police officers and claiming their rights through treaties. Well, Reyes Tijerina, he is one of those heroes of ours who did that. And that's why they arrested him and they did everything. I recommend that anyone in LA natives, and especially with those that have pre-Hispanic native blood, go research Reyes Tijerina if you don't know about him already. He wrote a great poem like The Tick in the Lion's Ear. And what he was saying in that poem was that he wanted to be a tick in the lion's ear because he knows that lion can't reach it. And that he was going to bug him until he drove him crazy. Till eventually he would, cease to do everything because he's trying to get to that little tick inside his ear.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah. That's, back then in the 60s.
And I don't know if you know about this twist that, people were buying slaves, essentially natives, anyone that was Mexican, Black, or Asian descent. But I guess in the 1850s, they allowed white people, and this is not an attack on all white people, guys, but they allowed white people to bail out natives from jail without them even knowing. And then they would have to work off what they paid.
Right.
They would essentially be that person's slave.
Indentured servant.
So I guess when they ran out of fucking slaves in the auction block, why don't we just bail one of these fools out, make him our slave?
Right.
Yeah,
that's sick, right?
Don't know that. About
and the authority force and the policing behind that, they just allowed that shit to go down.
It all works together.
Basically buying slaves from the federal government, yo.
I think that slavery as a global thing started dying out in the late 1700s.
Imagine right now getting bailed out by a dude and for a fact you have to work off all that shit.
Right, and he can lie about the amount. Labor? It could be $5, but he's saying it's $500, and now he's got you to work for him for $5.
These bills are what, 10 grand, 25 grand, 50 grand.
See? So what, 10 years of his life is being a slave to this dude? I mean, think about it. $10,000 during that time in the 1800s is like fucking crazy.
Yeah, it was probably like $500,000
more.
More, yeah.
Yeah, people don't understand that there was not just black slaves. There was brown, Asian, and even white slaves too sometimes.
No, really. No, there was.
But
now they're called poor people. They're called white poor people.
But of course, obviously, black and brown people were the most slaves as indigenous people?
Well, it's because we were completely derailed from our way of life. We went from sourcing our stuff out seasonally, like following a river, or following certain seasons where I'm sure we gave back to the earth. So like, say for instance, if we ate berries and there was some berries that went bad, we would go back to where we found them and throw them there so that we would come back the next year and they would grow. Right? It's a symbiotic relationship. Like, it's kind of like what they say about the rainforest. They say that it was planted, right? Natives took, oh wow, these beautiful trees and these beautiful plants and these beautiful flowers, and next thing you know, you have just this massive natural source of food, right? Yeah. That's what we did. We had a relationship with nature, in that our farming techniques were to add it to the place, like the forest. Instead of creating a crop, we would plant it in the forest. And that's what I believe all native people of Turtle Island did. There was no need for markets or money or any of that stuff, because Mother Earth is abundant. We never understood Mother Earth not being abundant. Yes. And so when they introduced money and stores and things of that nature, it confused us.
Like when natives find out the white person fucking like prayed to gold.
Yeah.
They were like, what the fuck is this?
Like, this is just
what the fuck are these people?
It's a yellow metal. Why are you tripping on it? Like, why? It's like weird.
It's that greed, right? That greed.
And I also think that they didn't trip about the land because they're like, really? You're going to stay here until the snow comes? And, it's dangerous if you stay here. It's like fucking.
They're like, okay,
stay
here.
And then we come back and they're fucking, what the fuck? He made it? Oh my God, this guy's a fucking genius. I don't know how he did it.
A lot of them died.
A lot of them died, but some of them made it. And we were probably surprised about it.
Well, they will resort to cannibalism and things, to survive.
Right. Yeah. If we didn't teach them how to, because there were tribes that did, plant crops and, grow corn. And we taught them how to do that. And I'm sure they got better at it. And they started creating root cellars and getting prepared for the winter. And, really, when the whitey colonial European colonizer came, he did not have a rhythm with nature. It wasn't just teaching them how to plant corn. We had to tell them the rhythms of nature. Because they came from a hierarchical society where a rich king went and stole things from others and kind of gave a tiny bit to the community and said, here, crumbs. Stop bothering me. Yeah, go stop bothering me. You can eat, right? Or whatever. Just a tiny bit. So when they came to the Americas, they found people that were in rhythms with nature. In other words, they would move when the seasons changed. They planted things when the seasons changed. They just were in rhythm with nature. So the colonial white European had to come to the Americas to learn how to be in rhythm with nature. And now they're like the expert fucking hunters and fucking root cellar guys. And hey, man, you made it work in the worst climate, in the worst areas. We moved. We went, when it got cold, we went that way because it was warmer. And we just followed the birds and we followed the animals. And those were our source of nutrition. So that's why we had a relationship with the buffalo, a relationship with the masa, a relationship with all the animals of.
And that's why it had the trading too, because for the off seasons, that's what the trade was for, to bring it across long distances. So.
Yeah, the Bosch de Camen. So from my understanding that, when we created Tenochtitlan, there were people that were going to be dedicated to the sciences and philosophies and the traditions of our culture. But there are other people that decided to be travelers, to take goods to other communities across Turtle Island and trade and bring back things like, different things. If we were, for example, if we went from Mexico, Tenochtitlan to Chichen Itza, we were going to come back with the things from Chichen Itza and take the things from Mexico, Tenochtitlan. And it wasn't a trade like, I need to go, get all this resources. It was more like, no, this is the experiences and these are the teachings and these are the things. This is why we have such a shared culture. 4 directions, the 4 colors. All these things are very similar to ancient pre-Hispanic natives, which is who we are, because we didn't have a choice in our mixed blood, but which makes us the last decision and identity that we cling to was pre-Hispanic, colonial, European, anything.
True. I'm pre-Hispanic.
Yes. Native. Indigenous.
I don't know. There's always, I think, a perception from American natives or American Indians that Mexican people are not native.
From some, but I mean, it's a lot on social media.
I met some face to face too.
Yeah.
No, of course. Some people cling to their colonial or Spanish or European side.
It's a misinformation.
But some of us really remember what it's like to be communal. Like a lot of the reason why I followed the Red Road was because I used to remember seeing my grandmother gather the family and make a certain meal, which happened to be tamales, which happened to be nopales, which happened to be pozole. These are ancient foods. My tia, one of my tias was like an atole expert.
Ancient foods.
Like they used to make it every day. Oh, siéntate, te voy a dar poquito atole. And it's like that wasn't just on Christmas or Thanksgiving. That was every day. I was around these foods, moles, things that, when you read the archaeological books, when I started reading Linda Shili, I started seeing all the names of the foods. And I started immediately connecting to my grandmother because she prepared these foods. Yeah. And I got to, be, connected with that.
With Mexicans and natives in the tribes in the U.S., there's a disconnect because of the border wall. It didn't just divide our land; it divided our people, and it the knowledge was lost with all the genocide and forgotten. So the connection that we had, the knowledge about who we are, who each other is, our cultures, our histories, kind of got blurred by that border. But what both sides, even Mexicans, don't realize is how much of the Mexican culture is actually indigenous and in our daily lives.
Right. Like the yerba buena.
Everything from what we say, speak, do, music, dance,
like
beliefs.
Tocayo. Like tocayo. Tocayo's a Nahuatl word. Tocayo. You're my tocayo. Like I meet some guys like, oh yeah, my name's Ruben. Oh, my name's Ruben too. You're my tocayo,
Yeah.
That's a Nahuatl word.
It's like in our daily lives. It's always with us. It's never been lost completely. Mm-hmm. So that's important to note on both sides of the borders. It just the information did get
like aguacate is a Nahuatl word.
Yeah, aguacate.
Aguacate is a Nahuatl word.
Tomate.
Yeah.
Aguacate. It's a lot. So
I think we should as a community start to really realize how much Nahuatl is in our Spanish daily lives, because you'll start to realize that this is what Mazatzin said, is that I remember talking to him about Cuauhtemoc's mandate and the beginning of our darkness, and he said yes. He's all yes, yeah, that's true, but there's always a light on. There was always a light on. There was always a light on, and then and then he points at the Aztec calendar. He's all, you don't remember walking into a house and seeing this?
Yeah.
You don't remember walking into your tia's house, your grandma's house, and you saw this on a calendar somewhere or some, it's always there. It's always been there.
It's always been there with us. Even tacos are indigenous,
right?
And we eat that every day and make it by hand and tacos, pozole. All these words are indigenous, Nahuatl words.
Right. Mole,
pozole, tacos, tamales, everything.
Right. And so much stuff comes from Mexico. So many remedies, so many different types of art. Because You go to Mexico, you're thinking of sobadas, you're thinking of teas and how can I heal myself, right?
Did you ever heard of in like when families have children and there was always like, oh, don't hold the baby like that or whatever, the mollera se le va a caer.
Yeah,
that's indigenous too.
Right. Yeah. Certain things that we do in our daily lives.
Or the mal de ojo, all these beliefs are indigenous beliefs.
Right. Because we were connected to nature. Nature was our principal connection to life and reality. This is why we developed the math system, that developed the observation system, which developed the art system, which developed our spirituality. These are the important keys to understanding our pre-colonial Hispanic reality as indigenous people and those that choose to embrace it, because you don't have to. I'm not here to convert people. I'm here to just let you know that those wisdoms exist within you if you choose to walk this path. Now, disclaimer, now that you're getting into ceremony, they're not easy paths. You already figured that out. Some people stop because it's too hard. They don't want to face trauma.
Exactly.
They don't want to go through what I have to suffer to kind of understand my mirror, to see how strong or weak I am. I think those ceremonies are challenges. Sweat Lodge is a challenge. Oh, yeah. Sundance is a challenge. Umblecha is a challenge. These things are challenges that we were back in the day used as males' rites of passage, because females had their own ceremonies and their own secret ways of doing things, because they're women and they deserve to determine what those ceremonies are and how. But in terms of like Sweat Lodge, Sundance, Umblecha, those are, in my opinion, even though women do them and they have every right to do them, more male.
I think there was, depending on tribes too.
Sure.
It was male or female.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But at least for me, if I were to think about it as a male, I would want to challenge myself at 13 in a Vision Quest, at 18 in the Sundance, and then progress into the medicine ceremonies late in my life, right? Which is the peyote and all the other things that come with, taking that next journey into our transformation. So there was a system, a rhythm of life. Our full potential was connected to the changing of seasons. This is why Nemotemi is so important. This is why, making sure that your temple is as safe, healthy, and cared for by the one thing that can care for it, which is yourself.
Yeah, and since you brought it up, I think it's good to note that these ceremonies are not bad for you. Peyote is not bad for you. I know there's a lot of fear mongering. There's a lot of racist things that the Spaniards made up about our people, about our medicine, about our rituals. They're sacred. They're not bad for you. They're not going to get you addicted to any bad drug or nothing like that, if that's what people are afraid of. People have to be a little more critical thinkers nowadays and realize that a lot of those things were just made up by Spaniards to justify the genocide that they were doing to our ancestors. And
to distract us from using them.
Exactly.
Right.
To discourage you from trying it. Says a lot of people hesitate to even try because they heard all these, you're going to get in drugs, you're going to get have a bad experience, like a very fearful bad experience. A lot of those negative things come from like the hippie circles who don't know what they're doing and they messed up and they did bad things, bad intentions with the medicine, and that always happens when you have bad intentions, when you don't learn from the right indigenous people, leaders. So I just want to quickly mention that.
You're right about the, maybe taking a workshop and then running with that wisdom and going, now I could teach others, because there's another thing. A lot of people, when I was going consistently to the lodge, they're like, Ruben, why don't you pour water? I was like, 1, I'm not said that. 2, I don't want the responsibility, because I have to make sure that as someone that the community is allowing to do that, 1, you have to go through the rites of passage, at least through the Lakota line, if that's the way you're going to do it. The mezcalis are different because they're made out of clay and they're more communal and they're very different. But still, in the sense that I feel I want to remain an artist. I want to remain somebody that's not in the spiritual realm of healing. I do it with my music, but not like maybe one day I'll get to those ceremonies and go through the right things so that I could maybe in my older time, my grandchildren's time, guide them through these amazing ceremonies. But right now, I just let my life evolve into the spaces that I need to be. And right now, I've been in the podcast and my music. I got a lot of shows lined up. And so there's a lot of things that I'm doing. And hopefully one day we can gather as a community, create these safe spaces so that these ceremonies can continue, at least in my, because it's hard to find.
I think there's some coming back already.
Yeah. No, there's many places, but like so that our community could gather, right? The people that we're trying to gather.
No, that's what I mean, because I think there's some coming to LA.
Okay. Yeah. So, we'll stay in the
soon,
loop.
but it is kind of hard to get the land, but little by little.
Right. That's the hard part, is having the resources either to buy it or having, and then you get into deals with other individuals, and then, it's a tough thing. Yeah, it's a tough thing to try to keep it going, but I believe that that's the challenge and that's the beauty of it. Once you get a circle consistently going, contributing, because that's what it is when it comes to these ceremonies, right? Okay. And so how the beginning of the show is relevant to what we're talking about now is that, yes, we get upset that when other people don't give us the validation that we deserve. Because the code talkers, they deserve whatever they went through in World War II. They were so loyal and gave so much, and to be erased like nothing is the epitome of what America has always been. They've never given us anything. Even when they did, they tried to quickly erase it as fast as they could. So this whole Jackie Robinson thing and these whole code talker things, go ahead and erase us. It's okay. You can't erase us. You can't erase us, man. Our blood lives in...
Nothing has erased us.
Right. Ever. Our blood lives in the sacred woman. She carries that blood and she transfers it to the child.
Exactly.
The father's there to guide, love, and protect that child. The father's role is to make sure that he's on time. And what I mean by that is trying to create a way to communicate what you connected to. And what I connected to was the ancient wisdoms of my past and the ceremonies in the sweat lodge. And then that evolved into the connections with the natural order of the day and night, which have calendar systems that go back thousands of years, which we're all could put ourselves on a road to learning. This is what I keep repeating on this podcast, is that we already have the answers to at least push forward the next 7 generations. Because if we do it now, 7 generations now, your great-great-grandchildren will own land, will own ceremonial space, will control or not even care if the government is contribute anything to them, because they will develop the systems upon which to help each other. That is why we are in such disarray, because we're trying to desperately remember our communalism, not communism, our communalism. How can we create things that are so abundant that we don't worry about sharing?
This is why you have to go to the concerts.
Yeah. We're trying to build that community, man, amongst each other. And
yeah, we will.
It's little by little. You know what it is that it breeds. It creates a movement for a little while, and then it dissipates for a little bit, and then we resurface it, and it gets a little better, and we just have to be patient. True. We're trying to get to summer before we even enjoy spring. We got to sit down and just enjoy the flowers come out at the right time and not feel rushed. These guys are rushing. This government is rushing to take control and try to take power because they already know that all their lives are falling apart. All their history is falling apart.
Like the Presidente says, the Mexican president, the cool head always wins.
Well, yeah, because he's patient, just like a jaguar. A jaguar will look at you for days before attacking you.
Stalk you.
He stalks you and just looks at you and goes, oh, wow, right on time. Right on time. Okay, now it's time to take you. That's the way we have to be.
So March 23rd.
Yes.
Sounds of Music.
Sounds of Music, March 23rd. And then don't forget that I'm opening up for Immortal Technique on April 18th. Shout out to MC Life for putting me on the bill. And those are the 2 shows that we're working on so far. We postponed our April 19th with Jonathan from Minnesota to June. But we're working on other things. Hopefully we can get maybe some workshops going and start, like smaller ones, smaller events that kind of help us promote the podcast and promote the message. The message is that Cuauhtémoc's prophecy is here, but it's up to us to pick up the wisdom and knowledge and practice it and learn and make mistakes and get disillusioned, but come back to it. I don't know. I try to stay consistent to it, and I dedicated my 25 years of life, and I've had the healthiest body, the greatest spiritual outlook. And I think that I'm finally forming a community that's like-minded and that has the same vision, which is to preserve the wisdom in the earth for our 7 generations.
Shout out to everyone that's watching. Shout out to everyone who's going to be listening to this tomorrow or the next day. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, comment on the video.
There'll also be the Mexican New Year event.
Yeah, you should announce what.
Mexican New Year.
Shout out Jag.
Yeah, Jag's event on the 29th at Sycamore Park. There will be the last Mexican New Year, Native New Year.
Right. Celebration.
Of the New Year event.
Right. You know what I like about Mexican New Year is that it's starting to turn into like a Day of the Dead kind of a thing where everybody's kind of celebrating in different, like Chicago, different spaces.
There was recently one up there in North.
In San Jose. Now that one's the big one.
And there was a lot of Native unity. I'm talking like Mexicans uniting with the tribes.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable, like how many were in attendance.
Did you go?
No, I didn't go.
Oh,
My
okay.
friends went, and they documented for me and everything.
Nice.
And the flyer even had already listed all these tribes that showed up, that pulled up. So it was a big event.
Michlapili has hired me to go up there several times for Elvo, and I seen that thing. That thing. I've seen that beautiful ceremony become something like historical. Like now it's starting to unite, reservation tribes with.
They were all there.
With displaced tribes, and I seen people throwing tobacco into the fire. Like
beautiful.
The new fire has been lit, and it's up to us to carry that fire inside our heart, and that comes in the decision making that we make about what we eat, how we think, and what we're going to contribute our energy to.
That's the biggest one, I think. But we should have a big one here in LA too, maybe next year.
Yeah. Well, as we go. Yeah. Well, we do Indigenous Peoples Day. So Indigenous Peoples Day is on October. So we're going to start working on that one. But yeah, I think that, Jag does that, and I try not to be in his way. Maybe we'll think of something like as we grow.
But we could collab with Jag.
Jag.
Just so that it becomes more, it grows more.
Yeah. He's been doing it for a long time. I remember when it was he did this event at a parking lot on Olympic Boulevard. It was like,
his was my first Mexican New Year.
Okay, yeah. No, he's known for it. Yeah, I mean, this brother's been working on that particular. So this week is that it's 2 weeks from now, right? The 28th, 29th, and 30th, right?
It's going down March 28th, 29th, and 30th.
Absolutely. So shout out to Jag. We're bringing in and celebrating one of the last events of LA and the Mexica New Year season with the 13th Kali commemoration. And this is going to be in Highland Park, right? It was Sycamore Park.
We have Jag Ariola.
Okay. Who's the lineup? Let's go over the lineup, yeah. Who's the lineup?
He's from the Justice 8.
That's right. Cosmic Force.
Native Threat.
Cosmic Force is going to be there.
Shout out to Coyote.
Oh, Coyotes. Yeah, Coyotes. They're pretty popular.
Yeah, underground hip hop blog. They've rocked with us before.
Absolutely. Is Viva on there? I think he played a couple years. Azomatli, yeah. Azomatli's pretty fire, man. I want to do a song with him so bad. That guy's, shout out to Azomatli, shout out to Cosmic Force, Jag. Good luck with your situation with the Justice State, and shout out to Jag for doing it again. One more year. Mexica New Year. We're gonna end the season right there at Sycamore Park. 28th, 29th, and 30th. Thanks for bringing it up. Gwali. Gwali.
I'm excited to go.
Yeah.
So any last words, Zero?
What do you think, Gwali? You could say some things maybe, and then I'll say some things. But
I mean, just decolonize.
Focus.
Yeah, everybody. I think everyone like you said, try to focus. Find your path and follow that path, even if it's getting. The climate is really it's turbulent right now.
Well, it's meant to make you mad.
Right.
It's meant
but
to do that.
Don't let it get the best of you. That's why I bring up Temazcal and Sweat Lodge, all that, because that actually helps you recenter. Right. That's one way. Also, the festivals, the good times, and just education. I think education helps you understand and prepare for our next steps, our next moves.
Right. Instead of getting frustrated and mad and just going over the same
thing. Doing nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Just, one time, a long time ago, I remember meeting a brother named, his name was Sergio Chavez. And he was like, you know what? I don't like protests. He's all, I refuse to go to protests. You want to know why I don't go to protests? He's all, because everybody goes to the protests. And look, a disclaimer, if you go to protests, if you believe in it, I'm not trying to take the rug out from you. I'm trying to tell you what Sergio said, and it made sense to me. He said, the thing with protests is that you get there and you let out this ball of energy about how you disagree with them. And then all this energy is gone. You go home, you sit down, you make some food, you watch the news, you go to bed, then you go to work, and you didn't do anything other than just say, hey, you know what? I really disagree with you, and fuck you. You know what I mean?
That's one way to look at it. But I think that's like from a perspective that's not really active, not really paying attention to how it affects the bigger picture, because we need that noise. We need people to get mad. We need all that vibrant, that energy to raise awareness, to push people to the next steps, to the next level, to organize. If we're quiet at home, nothing's going to happen.
Right.
But as soon as people start heading out to the street, talking, speaking, yelling, screaming, everyone starts to listen, and it wakes a lot of people up. Some people are going to look at it and they're going to be like, what does that do? But a lot of people look at it and they're like, oh my God, why I'm not there? I need to go. I'm going to the next one.
Right.
I want to organize. I want to join an organization. So yeah, if you're not involved, you're going to probably just look at it from an outsider perspective and think it's all negative, you know?
Well, I don't know if he felt like it was negative. He felt like it was.
He didn't have the positive.
It was designed. It was, yeah. No,
it was lacking that perspective.
What he was trying to point out was the design of just like inflating a balloon.
The critique. He was critiquing.
Yeah. And in a way, he kind of brought a little bit of maturity in our way, because he actually was organizing and doing things like going, hey, we should dedicate our time to Temazcal. I know this guy, and taking our spiritual path to elevate us. Yeah, going to Red Winds was kind of one of the most revolutionary things I did, and meeting Uncle Lon Walker and him putting me on this path, and him having ties with so many things that happened that were very crucial at that time in terms of the AIM movement. He was a part of the long walk. I think they walked from San Francisco to Washington, D.C., and his name is Ernie Peters, but I know him as Uncle Lon Walker. And he really opened my heart spiritually in the Inipi ceremony. And since then, I've been walking this path on a dedicated path. And, you know, I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. But we do try to, you know, bring awareness to our community, bring back the identity and ceremonies that really healed us, like Wally said, you know, try to find those spaces. Be careful, be aware. There are, there are people that do bad things there too. You know, it's
everywhere.
Not everywhere, but I'm just saying, be aware.
No, I'm saying the bad people are everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't escape them.
Right, but it's our job to be aware. It's our job to not be afraid of those people, because that's what our ancestors did. What do you think Joaquin Murrieta did? You think he was afraid of the rancher who had guns and had, you know, his hired hands, and, you know, he was like, hell no, we're going to use our fucking intelligence. Yeah. We're going to outsmart them, and we're going to win. And that's what they did, and they try to erase everything that we did. So this isn't the first round of erasure. This isn't the first round that they decided to take us out of their books and out of their history, because they try to erase Joaquin Murrieta. Pretty soon they'll try to erase Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, and all the other people that came and brought inspiration to the original people of Turtle Island, which is us.
True. If we allow it to.
Right. So it's our job to invest our time wisely, learn and take care of the old ways, the old foods, the old spirituality, the old everything. Yeah. Hold it dear in your heart. Know that you are that. If you really focus in and not be afraid of looking in the mirror and erasing all that colonial and that forced colonial life, if we start to realize that we were obsessed with the shifts of time and that nature led the way and that male and female both had a place in this community and that the children is what we focused on, the next 7 generations are crucial. So it's important to be rooted and tied with the sacred ways of the past. We'll see you next week. Lasokamatli, Ometeo, Tonansi, Tonate.